In my previous life, I was drained as a blood bag and died alone in the factory dormitory. When my parents saw my body, they regretted it. After being reborn, I obtained a 10 years early awakening pill. The system said that taking this would make my parents realize their mistakes 10 years earlier, but I immediately fed the pill to my baby brother in the cradle. My brother's eyes lit up, and his little nose seemed to gain intelligence. "Lucy, why haven't you sent money home yet? Did you spend it on some man?" Mom's scolding voice on the other end of the phone was deafening. "Your brother is still short of 100,000 yuan. This is the first time I've asked you for help, and this is the attitude you're giving me. He was practically raised by you since he was a child. Are you just going to ignore him? Say something, will you?" I lay in the factory dormitory, my forehead covered in cold sweat, my chest tight and painful, feeling as if I were about to die. "Mom, I don't feel well. Stop pretending to be dead. If you don't send the money today, I'll go to your factory tomorrow. I'll let the whole factory know what an ungrateful wretch you are." Dad's impatient voice chimed in. "Lucy, is a few $1,000s worth your life? I gave you your life in the first place." Grandma chimed in from the side. See, I told you we should have just strangled her back then." Amid their curses, I closed my eyes. After working continuously for 72 hours, I died suddenly in the dormitory. At noon, my co-worker discovered my body. In the afternoon, my parents rushed from out of town and wept bitterly in front of my coffin. They regretted it. The next second, the sound of a baby crying suddenly rang in my ears. I found myself in a small, familiar bathroom, with a baby in my arms. I was reborn at the age of 4. And this noisy little one in my arms is my younger brother. A golden elixir was floating right in front of me. The note beside the elixir reads, "Have your parents take this pill, and their mindset will advance by 10 years, allowing them to awaken sooner." I recall the sight of my parents weeping bitterly. They truly regretted it. They looked at the mere 30,000 yuan left in my bank account and regretted not having traded me for a bride price. With my death, they suffered a huge loss. Such parents, even if they had realized it 10 years earlier, would only have sold me off to the countryside when I was 14. The younger brother in my arms was still crying, his small hands clutching my clothes, spitting bubbles with his mouth. I looked at my brother, who now depends on me so much. Without hesitation, I shoved the pill into his mouth. At this time, the younger brother is 3 months old. He was already hungry, and when something sweet suddenly entered his mouth, he stretched his neck and swallowed it, even happily kicking his legs. But gradually, the kicking slowed down. A complex expression, unique to intelligent beings, gradually appeared on his face. He looked at me, who was holding him, and mumbled something indistinctly. "Dada." With the intelligence of a 10-year-old, it wasn't hard for him to figure out my relationship with him. "Little brother, are you hungry? Let your sister take you to find something to eat." "Duh." I carried him out of the room. "This is my family's old house." The electric fan whirred as it spun, and the boxy TV was playing a popular, melodramatic soap opera. My mom, wearing pajamas, was lounging on the sofa cracking sunflower seeds. She stared fixedly at the TV, occasionally pursing her lips at the cringe-worthy Mary Sue plot. "Mom, my brother is hungry. Mom, please make some formula for my brother." "Mom." When I called for Mom for the third time, the woman suddenly threw the sunflower seeds in her hand right at my face. My brother and I both got hit without distinction, calling for souls. "Mom, Mom, Mom," every single day. "Go find your grandma. Wasn't she the one who kept pushing to have you? Now that you're born, that old hag doesn't care anymore. You two little debt collectors, get out, get out." My brother was startled but didn't cry. I didn't say a word and carried my brother out the door. Grandma plays cards downstairs at this time every day. I carefully carried my little brother downstairs, taking one cautious step at a time. In my arms, my little brother's face was twisted with fear, his hands tightly gripping my collar. To a baby, this staircase is no different from a cliff, and his little life was in the hands of a 4-year-old. Fortunately, everything turned out fine in the end, and I found my grandmother playing cards. "Grandma, it's time for the baby to have some milk." With her eyes closed, Grandma rubbed the mahjong tile in her hand and suddenly played it. 9 of dots. Good heavens, it's the 9 of dots again. She rolled her eyes at us and said, "Go find your own mother for milk. I don't have any for him to drink." At that moment, my younger brother thought he was clever. Believing he could stir our grandmother's affection, he stared wide-eyed and began to cry. "Wah, wah, ouch, you two motherfuckers, get the hell out of here." Grandma pushed me aside. "I'm playing cards, don't jinx it here." I almost fell, pretending to comfort my brother who was faking tears. let's go, I'll make you some milk, sis. I carried him back home again. The milk powder was hidden in the kitchen's overhead cabinet. I placed my younger brother on the floor and skillfully stacked 2 chairs on top of each other. The chairs were wobbly, and my brother, lying on the floor, stared at me, not daring to breathe heavily. Fortunately, I managed to get the formula in the end, mixing the formula, feeding, and burping, all done in one go. After finishing the bottle, my little brother's tiny body began to feel sleepy, and he dozed off in a daze. I patted his bottom gently, my mind wandering back through this chapter of my life. My brother was too young to remember this, but I remember it clearly. My brother was an extra birth, and as soon as he was born, we had to pay a hefty fine. My grandmother complained that my mother couldn't breastfeed, so we had to spend extra on formula. My mother, on the other hand, resented my grandmother for deceiving her. She had promised to help take care of the baby and even give a gold bracelet. But none of it came true. My father went to work in the city, and the conflict between my mother-in-law and daughter-in-law shifted to me and my younger brother. It wasn't until he was 5 years old that they started acting like proper family members. Now it's better. My brother can personally experience the love they talk about. Time came when my brother was 9 months old, with the mind of an 11-year-old. He strongly resisted me helping him wash his bottom. I threw the towel to him. Then wash yourself, as if I enjoy serving him so much. In my previous life, I had to endure the smell of his waste for years. I'd much rather he handle it himself. My little brother grabbed the damp towel with both hands and slowly began wiping his bottom. Maybe I was a bit too harsh earlier, he pouted, looking somewhat wronged. Just as he tried to stand up, he suddenly slipped. Below was the hard-tiled floor. I caught him in my arms, thump, thump, clumsy and still trying to show off. I scolded him with my words, but gently rinsed his back with warm water. My younger brother has been mischievous since childhood, even without early intellectual development. He was still a little rascal. I always had to keep one eye on him. Though he doesn't remember it. Stupid girl. Grandma's voice sounded at the door. What are you doing hogging the toilet? The first thing Grandma does when she gets home from playing cards is use the toilet. She ignored the 2 of us, pulled down her pants, and peed, washing my brother's bottom. Humph. Grandma's triangular eyes glared at me and my brother, a pair of good-for-nothings. After she finished peeing, she saw me still silently scrubbing my brother and inexplicably flew into a rage. Dragging your feet, just like your lazy mother, using hot water in the middle of summer, all you know is how to enjoy yourselves, no idea how to save on gas. As she spoke, Grandma picked up the water dipper and splashed a scoop of cold water toward my younger brother. In the past, kids used well water to bathe. So what? They grew up strong and healthy. The cold water was chilling, and I quickly pulled my brother into my arms. Most of the water splashed onto me, leaving me shivering all over. Wah, wah, this time, the younger brother is really crying. Not long after, Mom decided to wean the younger brother. Her way of weaning was simply not buying formula, but she didn't care what he would eat afterward. She didn't care, and Grandma wouldn't care either. So every day, young me had to take a rolling pin and a kitchen knife, pounding and chopping meat and vegetables in the kitchen into a paste to feed my little brother. One day, my grandmother saw me busy in the kitchen, snatched my brother from my back, and carried him to the dining table. Look how clumsy you are, don't you know how to use your own mouth? Saying this, she picked up a meat bun from the table, took a bite, and with her wrinkled lips moving up and down, quickly chewed the bun into a mushy lump. She spat this lump into her hand and moved it toward her brother's mouth. Her brother struggled violently in her arms, his whole body stiffening, his little face scrunched up, forming 3 chins. And his eyes nearly popped out. Grandma, Mom said not to feed him like this. Mom said not to feed him like this. I ran over and tugged at Grandma's sleeve. Mom said there are germs. She's the one with germs. Grandma yelled at me, slamming that lump of stuff onto the dining table. Her man was raised this way. So what? I took the opportunity to take my brother from her arms and carried him to the kitchen to feed him porridge. Grandma wanted to chase after and hit me. But just then her mahjong partner came knocking at the door. Mary, come play mahjong, we're short one person. Ah, coming. I thought I had escaped the beating, but just before leaving, she pinched my thigh hard with her fingernail. Ouch! I bent over in pain, put my brother down, and lifted my pant leg to see a patch of skin had been viciously pinched off. Tap, 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 tap. My brother, facing the direction Grandma had gone, pounded the floor tiles with his little fists, his eyes red. I could tell he utterly despised that old woman. At the end of the year, Dad, who had been working away from home, returned. Our whole family sat at the dining table waiting for him to arrive home. My younger brother was especially nervous, and I knew what he was hoping for. Mom and Grandma didn't love him, only this father he had never met offered a glimmer of hope. Finally, the door opened, and Dad came in, bringing a chill with him. "My son, you're finally back," Grandma cried as she rushed forward. "You've been gone for over half a year, and I've been so worried about you. I haven't let you down. Look, your child is doing well. Don't worry, I'll help take care of the family for you." My brother couldn't help but roll his eyes, mumbling and spitting. "My precious son, Dad missed you so much." Dad walked over and took my brother from my arms, spinning him around in the air 3 times. "When you left, you were still like a little mouse. And now you've grown so much in just a few months. It looks like a happy family, but no one paid any attention to me the whole time." Mom looked at Dad with a hint of resentment. "Bob, how was your work this year? Why did you send back so little money every month?" Grandma slammed her chopsticks on the table. "Fiona, if you think it's too little, go out and earn it yourself. My son worked hard all year and just got home, and now he has to listen to your complaints. Do you even want to have a peaceful new year?" "I'm not criticizing him, I'm saying that next year I'll go with him, so we can earn an extra income." Grandma looked at Dad and thought it was a good idea, but Dad was being evasive. "Who knows what next year will be like? We'll talk about it after the new year." Dad didn't say it, but I knew. It's not that he didn't make money, he lost it all playing cards. After all, like mother, like son. After a few rounds of drinks, Grandma and Mom also had some. The atmosphere at the dinner table also started to liven up. Dad started talking about what he saw in the big city. "Mom, you have no idea how tall the buildings are in the big city. They reach right into the clouds. A single brick under their feet could buy one of our houses." Grandma had never seen much of the world, so she loved hearing her son talk about these things. It made her feel more sophisticated. "Good grandson. In the future, you'll take Grandma to the big city and buy her a tall building too." Grandma teased her younger brother with her rough fingers, and he dodged away in disgust. "Yes, I'm just waiting for my son to get into Tsinghua or Peking University, to bring honor to me. By then, you'll have to buy your dad a car, a fancy house, marry a city girl, and bring our whole family to the city to enjoy a good life." Dad lifted my little brother up to his face, rubbing his stubble back and forth on the boy's delicate cheeks. My little brother made babbling sounds, clearly resisting. My mom noticed me eating in silence and snorted coldly. "Sons are better, raising a daughter is completely useless." My dad glanced at me, probably thinking I was too young to understand. "It's not entirely useless. Do you know how much it costs to marry a wife these days?" "How much?" Grandma was most concerned about this. Dad extended his palm. 50,000 yuan. "Oh my God," Grandma exclaimed, looking at me with a beaming smile. "You, the money-losing burden, are actually worth this much." I smiled at Grandma, pretending not to understand. Thump, thump, my younger brother, furious, kicked and thrashed in Dad's arms. My mom looked at me with disdain, clearly displeased that I was being praised. "Her behavior isn't worth that much." "It is worth it," I asked around. My dad said proudly, "I have a coworker who does this kind of thing. You can send a 10-year-old to their village, and as long as they're not stupid or disabled, that's the going rate." Ouch. Suddenly, Dad cried out in pain. "My son, why are you biting me?" There was a red tooth mark on his arm, and my little brother leaned his whole upper body toward me, babbling. He uttered the first words of his life, "Sister." My little brother could talk now, and Dad had been pestering him for days, trying to get him to say, "Dad," but he just wouldn't call me that. He would only say, "Sister." Dad's interest quickly faded, and from then on, it was still me who took care of him every day. One day, while I was helping him build a bridge on the floor with old chopsticks, Mom suddenly yelled from the room, "There's a thief in the house." Mom's footsteps quickly reached the living room. She looked around angrily and finally fixed her gaze on me. "Lucy, was it you, you wretched girl, who took my money?" "It wasn't me," I replied calmly, shaking my head. Dad was watching TV nearby. "How much money did you lose?" "All the change is gone, a good $70 or $80. Hearing such a small amount, Dad couldn't be bothered to respond. I remember when I was a child, during the new year, money went missing at home. Mom suspected I had taken it and beat me severely, eventually throwing me out of the house. In the bitter cold of winter, I was so frozen that my hands were covered in chilblains, and the next day I came down with a high fever. It was this year, I started to recall, but in my memory, the money was never found in the end. As I was thinking, my mother slapped me. I staggered from the blow and fell to the ground. "Sister." My younger brother crawled over and threw himself on top of me. Mom, get Tom away. Grandma picked up my little brother and went back into the house. My little brother cried out in a panic, but it didn't slow down Mom's punches. Hurry up and hand over the money, or I'll beat you to death. You stay quiet at home all day, making me think you were so honest, but it turns out all your cunning is hidden here. Where did you hide the money? Seeing me covering my head, my mother yanked my hands away and pinched my face and neck hard. My father stood by indifferently, just frowning and turning up the TV volume. Soon, Grandma came back, and she wouldn't miss such a scene. She gloated, "There are no thieves in my family. I wonder where this bad habit came from." Mom secretly seethed with anger and hit even harder. My body was burning with pain. At that moment, a dull thud suddenly came from the room. Oh no, Tom fell. Several people rushed into Grandma's room, and I followed, holding my arm. There was my younger brother lying on the floor, crying loudly. Clutching Grandma's handbag, "There is a red coin purse inside. It's my mom's, my money." My mom snatched my grandma's handbag. That look was even more satisfying than when she caught me stealing money. She said sarcastically, "Ha, look, who really has the habit of stealing? You." Grandma couldn't find an excuse for a moment and could only turn to Dad for help. "Son, your wife is insulting your mother, Fiona. I'm the one who earns all the money. My mom can spend it however she wants." "Fine. You earn the money, you're so capable. When spring comes, I'll go to the city with you to work. I'll support myself." While they were arguing, I quietly went over and picked up my little brother from the floor. "Sister, does it hurt?" My younger brother was crying so hard his body began to tremble, asking me in broken sobs. I shook my head, feeling somewhat disheartened. Starting life over again is not as easy as one might imagine. I am only 5 years old now, unable to carry heavy loads on my shoulders or lift things with my hands. All I can do is wait until I grow up. Finally, my mother stormed out angrily. Seeing me sitting on the ground comforting my younger brother, she coldly tossed 2 coins near my feet. "Enough. If you had behaved well normally, I wouldn't have to scold you. I gave birth to you and raised you, so what's wrong with hitting you a couple of times? Do you expect me to kneel and apologize to you?" After saying that, she put on her coat and left. With Mom gone, Grandma and Dad simply went out to play cards. At noon, I cooked a bowl of noodles for the 2 of us. After eating noodles, I carried my younger brother on my back and went to the small shop. With the 2 coins my mother gave me, I bought 2 ballpoint pens. On a cold winter day, I stuffed the ballpoint pens into my younger brother's hand. "Little brother, your big sister doesn't need you to protect her." Hearing this, my younger brother was clearly taken aback, and his eyes reddened again. He thought I was disappointed in him for being useless. "Your sister is very capable. Promise me that we'll study hard together in the future and get into a big city. We'll run far away and never come back." My brother's eyes finally lit up, and he nodded seriously. Just as adorable as I remember. Day by day, time passed. Gradually, my brother learned to speak and no longer needed me to carry him on my back. And I started elementary school. The family believed he was starting to remember things, and their attitude toward him began to change. But my younger brother was no longer as easy to deceive as he was in his previous life. He truly developed a strong interest in learning. Just as he had promised me, when I was doing my homework, he would also bring a small stool over to scribble and draw. These elementary school assignments are very easy for him. His family also quickly realized that he was smarter than other children. "Wow, Sister Ma, this is amazing. Your family might just produce a top scholar in the future." Because both his parents went to the city to work, we started living with our grandmother. Grandma liked to take us to the place where she played cards to show off my brother's extraordinary talent. The child I've watched grow up can't be anything but great. Just like our Bob. When our Bob was little, he could pick up cold briquettes faster than any other kid. Grandma said proudly, "If she took after my daughter-in-law, it would be over. Look at this girl, just like her mother, clumsy and slow all day long." My sister got the top score in the class. My younger brother slammed the pen on the table and shouted crisply, "Don't listen to her bragging. Grandma never cared about my studies, so she doesn't know whether my grades are good or bad. She's been lying and stealing your mom's money since she was little. Do you believe her? You're the liar. It was you who stole mom's money. I remember it clearly. You hid it in your bag. You even said it was for playing cards with small change." Grandma didn't expect him to actually remember. She looked a bit embarrassed, but she still refused to back down. What could you possibly remember at such a young age? My brother was about to speak, but I patted him on the back, puffing out his cheeks. He swallowed the words, "old thing," that were about to follow. Grandma's mahjong partner said mockingly, "Sister Ma, your granddaughter is something else. At such a young age, she knows how to win people over. I see your grandson isn't even close to you anymore. Don't let him grow to resent you later." These words struck a chord with the old lady. From that day on, the old lady deliberately kept my brother and me apart. I knew what she was thinking and chose to deliberately comply. My younger brother was also very obedient. When I wasn't around, he would flip through the textbooks from my previous semester. He quickly learned to recognize quite a few characters. In the past, during dinner time, Grandma would only give us 2 yuan to buy steamed buns. Now she always brings her brother home at mealtime. In fact, she herself is quite clumsy. She relied on her husband when she was young, and after he died, she leaned on her son. She has hardly cooked a meal in her entire life. Now, to win over her brother, she has actually started cooking. That day, Grandma had learned a new dish from somewhere: poached sliced pork. The moment I saw this dish, a memory was triggered in my mind. So it's today. Grandma had been busy for over an hour, making the kitchen messy and dirty, just to barely finish making this dish. She quickly called out to my younger brother, "Tom, Grandma made you boiled fish slices tonight. This is a dish from a fancy restaurant. See how much Grandma loves you." Saying that, she wobbled as she carried a pot of steaming boiled meat toward the dining table. I calmly looked at the floor. There was a puddle of water she had just spilled. Grandma stepped right onto the puddle, slipped, and lost her balance completely, watching the hot soup spill toward herself. She threw the basin away without hesitation. It flew toward her younger brother, who was reading in front of the TV. In her previous life, she had scalded her brother's neck, leaving a large scar. In this life, her brother would despise her. I intended to ignore it, but before I knew it, I had rushed over and pulled my younger brother into my arms. The scalding soup spilled on the floor, splashing onto my lower legs. "Sister." My brother quickly pulled me to the bathroom to rinse with cold water. Luckily, it was just a reddening from the heat. My brother rushed back to the living room and roared, "If you dare hurt my sister again, I'll never acknowledge you as my grandmother." The old lady was stunned for a moment, then sat on the floor and began to cry out in grievance. Eventually, seeing that no one paid her any attention, she quieted down. From then on, the old lady no longer dared to treat me poorly in front of my brother, and even if she had to fake it, she would show a little warmth. A year later, my family's financial situation improved. Although Fiona was not a qualified mother, she was a business-savvy entrepreneur. At first, both she and my father worked at a construction site, but later she set up a stall outside the site selling boxed meals. After the business thrived, she rented a storefront and successfully became a female boss. At that moment, Mom suddenly missed her son and made the decision to bring both of us over. Of course, the main reason for taking me along was to look after my younger brother. "Lucy, come here." After the shop closed in the evening, Mom called me into the back room with a grim expression. I was 8 years old at the time, and my brother was 4. Seeing her grim expression, my brother quickly followed her. Mom threw him a toy and told him to play in the corner of the room. "Lucy, your father has another woman outside." Mom came up with a heavy piece of news right away. I had heard it in my previous life, so it didn't feel new to me. I still kept my head down, feeling gloomy. Mom glanced at my younger brother playing with his toy car in the corner, thinking he wouldn't understand. "If your parents get divorced, who would you go with?" "I don't know," I replied dismissively, but my mom misunderstood, thinking I was torn between the two. Suddenly, she hugged me tightly and started sobbing. "Lucy, your mother has had such a hard life. Your father just can't change his ways. If it weren't for you, I would have divorced him long ago. You're my only daughter. You must stand by my side." She looked at me with gritted teeth. "The Castro family favors boys over girls. When they found out you were a girl, your grandmother and your father couldn't even be bothered to take a look. If it weren't for Mom stopping them, they would have strangled you. Ever since giving birth to you, my back has been hurting to this day. You are a piece of my flesh, my little warm coat. Only Mom can't bear to part with you." In my past life, hearing these words truly broke my heart, as if it were being torn apart. Since I was young, everyone has told me that there are no parents in the world who do not love their children, so I believed they loved me. I never thought it was just two people who didn't love each other using me. I pretended to sniffle. "I can't bear to leave you either, Mom. Dad is bad. I hate him." Hearing me say that, my mom finally stopped crying and smiled, her eyes filled with the joy of revenge. After Mom left, my younger brother, who was playing with toys in the corner, grabbed me. "Sis, don't be fooled. they're just using you as a pawn, is that so? I showed the puzzled expression of an 8-year-old child. My younger brother nodded seriously. Sis, listen to me, don't say a word about them, and don't get involved in anything, did you hear me? Seeing me looking dumbfounded, my brother pressed the question sternly. Oh, big sister knows now. After I finished speaking, my younger brother ran out of the house. At dinner time, Dad came back drunk. My mom started putting on a show at the dinner table, holding her waist with a pitiful expression. Oh no, it looks like it's going to rain again these next couple of days. My back hurts like it's being pricked by needles. It hurts so much at night that I can't sleep well. And I still have to run the business during the day. Sigh. In my previous life, I would have stood up for my mom at this point, only to get beaten up by my dad. Mom looked satisfied in the end, but still scolded me for being disrespectful. This time, I didn't respond. Mom shot me a glare and deliberately put another piece of meat in my bowl. Lucy, study hard, and we'll buy you a house in the future, so you can get your household registration in a big city. What's wrong with you? Dad slammed the table. She only needs to finish elementary school. Why buy a house? Mom wanted Dad to provoke me, but I acted as if I didn't care at all, just kept my head down and ate. Seeing me as unresponsive as a block of wood, my mom didn't bother to say anything more. While eating, my dad suddenly exclaimed in surprise, then he started vomiting violently. Damn it, why is there a piece of shit in my bowl? Ha 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 ha. My younger brother suddenly clapped his hands and laughed. Mom said that a dog can't change its habit of eating shit, so I fed Dad dog shit. Mom said Dad doesn't earn money and wants to divorce you. I'll go with Mom in the future and won't care about you or Grandma. Dad, who was already drunk, vomited even more violently. Fine, Fiona, you want to divorce me and even incite my son to harm me. Mom looked at her younger brother in astonishment. How could a 4-year-old know so much? Tom, what nonsense are you talking? The younger brother stiffened his neck. I'm Mom's little sweetheart. Dad cheated and slept with another woman. He doesn't want us anymore. He and Grandma are both bad people. When I grow up, I'm going to beat him to death. You still want to hit your dad? Dad stepped forward and kicked him, sending the younger brother tumbling to the ground. I told you to stir up trouble here. He slapped Mom across the face. Bob, you hit me. Boo-hoo, I'll fight you to the death. I picked up my little brother and ran out onto the road. This was the first time he was beaten by Dad. I lifted my brother's clothes and saw a red footprint. What nonsense are you talking about? Does it hurt? Sis, it doesn't hurt. I made them fight among themselves. My brother's face showed the thrill of revenge. I looked at my brother speechlessly. Even though he matured earlier than his peers, he was still just a teenager. Little brother, these are adult matters. They have nothing to do with us. We just need to take care of ourselves. Okay, sis, I just can't stand them taking advantage of you and treating you poorly. I patted his head. Thank you. I promise you, I won't let myself be taken advantage of. Seeing that I was fine, my brother finally relaxed and said proudly, Sis, you know what? This dog poop is from Big Yellow. His poop is the smelliest. Okay, go wash your hands quickly. When my younger brother was in elementary school, my parents bought a house in the city and brought Grandma to live with us. Over the years, they have indeed put a lot of effort into supporting my brother, but he has always been indifferent to them. Seeing this, Grandma was afraid that my brother would drift apart from them. One day, after Dad went out for a drink, Grandma called my younger brother into her room. Not long after, my brother's sarcastic questioning could be heard from inside. Grandma, what do you mean my sister is an outsider? My brother kicked the door open and looked at my mom. My grandma said my sister is an outsider and can't be relied on, so she'll have to depend on me to take care of her in the future. Then, Mom, you're also an outsider. Why do you still have to be filial to Grandma? My mom was wiping the table and secretly felt pleased upon hearing this. Grandma's face darkened, and she stubbornly insisted, because your mom married your dad, she's part of our Castro family now, so she should be filial to me. Hey, my younger brother put his hands on his hips. Then why won't you let my aunt be filial to her mother-in-law? Grandma was caught off guard by my brother's words and flew into a rage out of embarrassment. Pointing at me, she scolded. A married woman is like spilled water. Once she's out, she's out. You're defending her now, but in the future, she'll only defend her husband. Aren't you also water spilled from the Chen family? I heard from my mom that you used to take money from home to support your in-laws. I didn't see you burn any less incense for the Chen family on Qingming festival. Grandma, if you're trying to drive a wedge between me and my sister, I suggest you shut up early. Whoever treats me well, I treat them well. Those who never cared for me for a single day, Don't even try to get close. Grandma was so angry she stomped her feet. Tom, have you fed your conscience to the dogs? I raised you since you were little. How have I not been good to you? Haha, taking me to play mahjong is what you call taking me along. Grandma pointed at me. Lucy, I think it's you who's stirring things up behind the scenes. Don't you dare yell at my sister again. If you do it one more time, I won't support you in your old age, and you'll starve. Grandma was so angry she started crying, but my dad wasn't home, and my mom was too busy enjoying the drama to even care about her. After this incident, my grandmother never dared to come between me and my brother again. In the blink of an eye, I turned 14. All these years, my parents only attended parent-teacher meetings for my brother and never paid any attention to me. They felt that allowing me to receive a free compulsory education was already a tremendous favor to me. After learning that my younger brother's academic performance was excellent, they became even more fond of him. Neither my brother's school nor mine provides lunch at noon. Fortunately, our family runs a restaurant, so my mother prepares 2 lunch boxes for us in the morning. Both lunch boxes are tightly sealed, and she specifically reminds us not to open them on the way to avoid spilling. Sis, here's a big chicken leg for you. Across the playground fence, my brother slipped a braised chicken leg into my lunchbox, which was otherwise filled with only vegetables. Here, have some spare ribs too. I gave him a few pieces back, and after a bit of back and forth, we finally started eating. They probably never imagined that I sneak out to have lunch with you every noon. My younger brother shoveled food into his mouth, looking quite pleased with himself. You sneak out every day. Doesn't your teacher say anything? My brother retorted with a smug expression. Tong Go is the top student in the whole school. Even if I can't reach the top of the wall, the dean would give me a boost from below. He successfully made me laugh, and before I knew it, this younger brother was almost as tall as me. Brother, they're only treating me poorly, so why are you opposing them too? For justice, my brother shouted, but then he said seriously, sis, do you really think they treat me well? I didn't speak. Is it possible that, to them, we are both just property? Keep it if it's valuable, throw it away if it's not. I believe there are parents in this world who love their children, but they definitely aren't among them. My younger brother smiled at me and gave me the last piece of spare rib. Sis, once you get into high school, they'll definitely find out your grades are even better than mine. By then, they will definitely have their eyes on you, so you need to be on guard. I nodded seriously. I finished my high school entrance exams, but aside from my younger brother, no one seemed to care. That summer was long, and Grandma arranged for us to return to our hometown. On the way, we also spent a day at one of her relatives' homes in the countryside. This relative had a daughter, and our parents told us to call her our cousin. Oh, sister-in-law, Tom has grown into such a fine young man, so handsome. The relative affectionately patted my brother on the shoulder and glanced at me standing nearby. Suddenly, my eyes felt a bit teary. Unlike my previous life, thanks to my brother's care, I didn't suffer from malnutrition. Now I'm taller than my mom, and my looks are quite striking. This girl sure can eat, and she's grown a lot. Hearing this, my brother snorted and mouthed the words, blind as a bat. After the meal, my cousin took me to play in the village, while my brother stayed at home to keep the guests company. As the adults chatted, the conversation eventually turned to me. Sister-in-law, how old is your Lucy? She's 15, just finished the college entrance exam. With her brain, who knows if she'll even get in? Because my brother was there, my mom didn't dare say anything too harsh. Oh, so you're saying if she gets in, you'd actually let her continue studying? What's the point of a girl studying so much? The more she reads, the more ideas she gets, and she becomes harder to control. In our village, girls can be sent off to have children as young as 14. Look, Tom is already so grown up. If we marry off his sister, it'll be easier for him to find a wife later, won't it? Mom wanted to stop it, but it was too late. The relative's words poured out as fast as beans spilling. My brother shot up from his seat, startling everyone. Mom quickly smoothed things over. Oh, come on, it's all just idle talk. That kind of thing isn't common in the city anymore. My younger brother stared at that relative, suddenly let out a cold laugh. Mom, I'm going to find my sister to play. When my brother found me, I was surrounded by my cousin and a group of children. Can't even a city kid jump over a pigsty? My mom said they weren't from the city at first. Just like us. Then she is a traitor, right? Unless you jump over the pigsty, you're a traitor. Traitors have to kneel and kowtow. I stood speechless in the middle, not wanting to say another word. Bullying my sister is nothing special. Have the guts to challenge me. My brother suddenly appeared, glaring at that cousin, seeing a boy show up. The other boys weren't convinced either. Let's compete then, we'll race to the pigsty, jump over the manure pit on the other side, and whoever comes back first wins. If you lose, you have to kowtow. No problem. In the countryside, children play without distinction between boys and girls. Everyone runs together, a group of people all lined up at the starting point. At the signal, they all dashed forward in a rush. My younger brother has been a wild monkey since childhood, and during his 3 years of middle school, he climbed over the high wall at least twice a day. He runs both fast and agile. A few of the boys were precocious and knew that our cousin was trying to make things difficult for us, deliberately tripping up my younger brother. Unexpectedly, my younger brother, like a little calf, knocked them all aside with a single shoulder. There were a few big, fat pigs in the pigsty, and 2 of the boys lost their balance, tumbling right onto the pigs, which scared the animals into squealing wildly. Crossing the pigsty and running a few more steps, you'll reach the village manure pit. The younger brother deliberately slowed down to wait for his cousin. Just as his cousin was about to jump, he stuck out his foot to trip her. Help, your daughter has fallen into the manure pit. My parents were chatting with relatives about how much money they could get for selling me. Just then, someone came to deliver a message. Everyone rushed out and saw my cousin, half dead and covered in manure. Carl Chen, look at your child, a burly man said, pulling 2 boys along. How can a girl be so wild? She made my 2 sons climb into the pig pen. They almost got trampled to death by the pigs. And my pigsty, those brats trampled it all down. Whoever instigated this has to pay for it. The 2 boys were also covered in pig manure, and with the 3 of them together, the stench was unbearable. My cousin could only cry at this point. She hadn't seen who tripped her, so she couldn't even complain. In the end, she got a beating from her mother and had to pay the pig farmer 100 yuan to rebuild the pigsty. Because of this incident, it was hard for our family to stay any longer, so we returned to our hometown that very day. When the middle school entrance exam results came out, my parents were stunned. They never expected that the daughter they had neglected for over a decade would be admitted as the top scorer to the best high school in the big city. They looked at me as if I were a stranger. With shock, doubt, and wariness, at that moment, the relatives' words echoed in their hearts again. Too much reading makes the mind too active, hard to control. One evening, I overheard them whispering in Grandma's small room, "Bob, why is this girl so deep in thought? It's quite frightening. She can't be allowed to read any more books. Who knows what twisted ideas she might develop if she keeps reading. Yes, look at Tom. He's been led astray by her, in my previous life." They secretly went to the school and cancelled my student registration, forcing me to choose between working and getting married. From the age of 16, I worked tirelessly until I was 24. This time they wanted to try the same old trick again, but clearly, they knew next to nothing about the education system. How could the school possibly let me go when I was ranked first in the city? When they came back with the 20,000 yuan bonus from the school, I saw a smile on their faces for the first time. "Lucy, study hard, and let me know if you want anything to eat." Oh my, the ancestors have blessed us. Our family has produced 2 literary stars. "Daughter, even if I have to work my fingers to the bone, I'll support you through college." On the surface, I acted grateful, but deep down, I remained cautious, because I know, they won't let me fly away. Even if I were a phoenix, I would be a phoenix with broken wings. If I fly away, I won't belong to them anymore, and they won't be able to exploit me. Throughout the 3 years of high school, I never dared to waste a single moment. Being reborn didn't help much with my studies, but my mindset was truly different. I moved forward without hesitation, with an extremely clear goal. I want to fly away, far away, to a place they could never even imagine. My brother and I thought alike. It was as if we were in a competition, holding our breath. He even skipped a grade after finishing the first year of middle school, directly closing the gap between us. When I was in my final year of high school, he was admitted to my high school with the top score in the entire school. "Sis, I finally caught up with you. Good luck on the college entrance exam." Before filling out the college application forms, Dad took the whole family out for a meal. "My dear daughter, last time when we had dinner with Uncle Wang, he said that the city university here is quite good, graduates have guaranteed job opportunities, so he suggested you apply to this school. Does he have a problem?" My brother said irritably. "You can get into that school with just over 300 points. Does he even know how many points my sister can score?" He meant well for Lucy, and Mom also thinks it makes sense. By this time, Mom already had white hair at her temples, a young girl like her. If she goes to another city, her parents would be so worried. Yeah, It's so good to be at home. Once you get married, the family restaurant will be handed over to you and your husband to manage. In the past, no family would ever spoil a daughter like this. Grandma was so moved by the pie she painted herself. Seeing that I wasn't speaking, my mom grew a bit anxious. Lucy, I've never liked your quiet personality since you were little. Where did you apply? Just say it. Can't you even talk to your family? I've already applied. Capital Medical University. I want to be a doctor. I put down my chopsticks, my tone indifferent. For a moment, the entire room fell silent. In the following days, they never brought up the topic of filling out college applications again, but I knew that beneath this silence, there was anything but peace. Sure enough, 2 days later, the whole family returned from outside, their faces beaming with joy. I happened to be away that day, and only my younger brother was at home. What were you all up to? My brother frowned, annoyed by their appearance. We went to the internet cafe, Dad said with some pride. Grandma even winked and smiled at Mom. Tom, your parents, are doing this for your own good. Mom sat down next to my brother, putting on a gentle motherly expression. You're a boy, with ambitions to go far in the world. We can't keep you tied down at home, with your sister taking care of things at home. You can focus on building your career outside without worry. Exactly, Grandma chimed in. You'll need a lot of money for college in the future. If your sister goes out and spends it all first, what will we do then? My brother suddenly jumped up. It wasn't the first time he'd lost his temper at home, but this was the first time he'd gone this crazy. He flipped the coffee table over and screamed at them hoarsely. Speak up. Where have you been? How dare you? I'm your father. And you dare to yell at me? Dad rushed forward to subdue his younger brother, but his brother, already 185 meters tall, pushed him to the ground with one hand. Sitting on the ground, Dad was furious and pointed at his brother, shouting, Fine, go ahead and yell. We've already used up the last chance to change your sister's college application. She can't change it anymore. Why are you doing this to her? The younger brother shouted, tears welling up in his eyes. He wanted to beat these people up, but hitting them wouldn't solve anything. After taking a deep breath, he calmed down and pulled out his phone. His mother and grandmother hurried over to comfort him. The two of them were taken aback. Tom, what are you going to do? The younger brother ran outside in big strides. I'm going to call the police. At the police station, the younger brother had a bruised mouth but sat up straight. The distraught mother and grandmother sat on the ground, throwing a tantrum. The father who just hit his younger brother has been handcuffed by the police. Classmate, according to current laws, parents cannot be sentenced for privately modifying their children's college entrance exam choices. A police officer walked out with a grim expression, looking at the bizarre parents lying haphazardly on the ground, feeling deeply resentful, but there was nothing he could do. How could this happen? Not only could I not help my sister, but I also failed to make them pay. Tears instantly streamed down the younger brother's face, and his whole demeanor became dejected. Look, even the country agrees with what we're doing. Your parents gave birth to you and raised you. You owe them obedience for life. This is gratitude. Parents are greater than heaven. Dad was handcuffed, his face full of pride. My younger brother was so angry his hands trembled. He took out his phone and finally dialed my number. But my phone suddenly rang at the entrance of the police station. I appeared suddenly, holding a document in my hand, and looked coldly at my parents. No one agreed to let you do this. Evil done in the name of love is the most shameless and despicable evil. Sis, my younger brother quickly ran over. I interrupted what he was about to say. I knew they would do something. I've been watching them these past few days. After I found out they were going to change the application, I went to the education bureau. Brother, thank you for helping me call the police and saving me time. Officer, please give me the police report. I need to take it to the education bureau to change my college application. Upon hearing that the application could still be changed, the police officer immediately went to process it. No, you can't apply to a college in another city. If you dare to go, I won't give you a single penny. They shouted behind us. I grabbed the materials, took my brother by the hand, and rushed out of the police station, like two birds breaking free from a cage, soaring into the sky. My name is Tom, and my sister's name is Lucy. According to my sister, back then, due to the policy, she took up a quota, so they hoped she would pass away at a young age. But later, my parents did the math and said they could use the money to get me a wife. That's why they risked being fined to have me. But my whole family scolded her for talking nonsense. I am a golden child, a boy blessed with wealth and fortune. I can't remember much from before I was 5 years old. I've heard from others that my older sister was never kind to me since I was little. She had a terrible character. she would even blame me for stealing money and once nearly scalded me to death with hot soup, leaving a large scar. My sister was always quiet at home, and the only time she raised her voice was at the dinner table when she accused our father. That time, Dad hit her. I didn't understand, since our parents had such a good relationship, why would she try to persuade them to divorce? My sister didn't get into high school and started working in a factory right after graduating from junior high. According to my parents, she rarely sends money home and has been involved in messy relationships over there. I really want to call and talk to her about it, but before I could even address her situation, I fell seriously ill. The doctor said it's a brain tumor located on the brainstem. The surgery costs are extremely high, but the chances of success are almost zero. My parents haven't come to see me in a long time. Grandma said they went to the reproductive medicine department. She mentioned that the technology is advanced now, and for 100,000 yuan, they can have several at once. I don't quite understand. Didn't Dad lose all our family savings playing cards 2 years ago? Where did they get 100,000 yuan? I was thinking in a daze until I closed my eyes completely. I slowly opened my eyes again. I saw the doctor in front of me wearing a sterile mask. Her eyes were beautiful and very familiar. Sis, my voice was still weak. The surgery was a success. The brain tumor has been completely removed. Now you need to rest well. I forced a smile. With the world's top neurosurgeon performing the operation, it was bound to be a success. Sis, I just had a dream. A dream? Yeah, I dreamed that when I was little, I was so foolish. I didn't remember how good you were to me, nor how bad they were. I even kept speaking up for them, like an idiot. In my dream, I also had a brain tumor, but in the dream, I didn't have a miracle-working sister. I saw a moment of surprise in my sister's eyes, but then they curved into a smile. That must have been a terrible nightmare, but as long as you're alive, nightmares always end. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Reborn at the age of 6, the first thing I did was gather the whole village to catch my dad and his lover in the act. At that moment, the excitement of the entire village was palpable. I was reborn, returning to the year I was 6. I personally saw Dad carrying Aunt Ophelia from next door and disappearing into the inner room. It was New Year's Eve in 1988, at the wedding banquet of the village chief's son. Mom and Grandma had gone to help out. I quickly ran to the village chief's house. The ceremony is underway, and the entire village is present. I ran up to the podium in a hurry, snatched the microphone from the host's hand, and cried out loudly, "Quickly, save Aunt Ophelia." My dad took off her pants and hit her. After a brief moment of shock, the host quickly stepped forward to grab the microphone back from me. I refused to let go, screaming hoarsely, "Go quickly and save her." Aunt Ophelia kept begging for mercy, but my dad won't let her go. He keeps hitting her. At that moment, the excitement of the entire village was palpable. The villagers all rushed toward my house in unison. My grandmother shouted at the top of her lungs, "Don't listen to the child's nonsense. There's nothing going on, everyone hurry back." But those eager to see the commotion paid her no mind. Running faster than rabbits, the whole village swarmed into my family's courtyard in a chaotic rush. A few young bachelors from the village kicked open the inner room door of my house in just a few moves. When I squeezed in from under the adults' legs, I only saw my dad and Ophelia's pale bodies. My dad frantically pulled up his pants, and Ophelia snatched the quilt, wrapping it around herself in a disheveled manner. My mom pushed through the crowd, grabbed Ophelia by her hair, and dragged her into the yard. My mother was known far and wide as the most virtuous wife in the neighborhood, and in all the years since her marriage, she had never once raised her voice at anyone. But at this moment, she seemed to have gone mad, slapping Ophelia's fair face 8 times in a row until it swelled up. My dad, who usually doted on Ophelia, now cowered like a turtle, hiding in the inner room, afraid to come out. Ophelia's maiden home was right next to ours. Her mother, feeling sorry for her daughter, rushed over to stop my mother. My mom didn't go easy on her, impartial as ever, and gave her a few slaps too. At this point, the village chief and his wife, who was the village women's director, couldn't just stand by. They quickly stepped in to calm my mom down. So, my dad and Ophelia, that scoundrel couple, were tied up with their arms behind their backs, kneeling in the courtyard in disheveled clothes. My mother's face turned ashen as she held me tightly, glaring at them with hatred. My grandmother, who had always been fiercely protective of her son, wanted to rush forward to shield my father but was firmly restrained by the village chief's wife. In stark contrast to my mother, my grandmother was notorious far and wide as a shrew, having offended many people in her daily life, especially the elderly women from the neighboring households, who would never miss this chance to humiliate my grandmother. They chattered away, gossiping, "Still protecting your own son after what he's done? What were you thinking? The upper beam is not straight, the lower beam is crooked." This is really a bit unfair to my grandmother. She had always disliked Ophelia, thinking she was lazy, gluttonous, and restless. My grandma only found out about my dad and Ophelia's affair today. She pointed at me, Ophelia, and shouted, "It must be this slut who seduced my son, village chief. Beat this tramp to death." Upon hearing this, Ophelia's mother became furious, disregarding the revolutionary camaraderie she usually shared with my grandmother, gossiping about others. She directly pushed my grandmother to the ground and cursed, "Your son forced my daughter, and we're going to sue him. I wouldn't even be satisfied if he got the death penalty." My grandmother and Ophelia's mother wrestled, pulling hair and slapping each other, fighting with great gusto. By now, my mother had calmed down. She frowned coldly, watching them in silence, but her arms around me were tight, as if she feared losing me the moment she let go. Suddenly, a bold guess flashed through my mind, one that sent my blood boiling. The village chief called a few strong laborers to tie up my father and take him to his house, locking him in the woodshed. Ophelia, meanwhile, was taken by the women's director to the village committee for supervision. During the New Year celebrations, we couldn't let such an incident ruin everyone's festive mood. The onlookers reluctantly left, glancing back every few steps. This home will never know peace again from now on. That night, my mother held me in her arms, tears streaming down her face, unable to get enough of looking at me. After a long moment of contemplation, I finally spoke up, "Mom, do you remember the red butterfly garment factory in S City?" As soon as the words left my mouth, my mother's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at me. I couldn't hold back any longer and threw myself into her arms, crying as I said, "Mom, just like you, I've also been reborn." Sure enough, just as I had suspected, my mother, like me, had been reborn today. When she came to, she was exhausted and dozing off in the village chief's kitchen, before she could figure out what was happening. I had already run to fetch someone to catch them in the act. That's why my mom, completely out of character, scolded Ophelia and her mother like a shrew. That night, my mother and I went over the events of our past lives again. Finally, a series of plans were formulated. In summary, it's about settling scores and seeking revenge where it's due. On the morning of the first day of the Lunar New Year, my mom and I slept in luxuriously. In the past, it was always my mom who got up early to cook, clean the yard, and then respectfully invited grandma out for breakfast. On the days when my mother went to work in town, my grandmother would make me, just 6 years old, cook porridge and steam buns. She herself would sleep until the sun was high in the sky, then wait to be served like an empress dowager. Such good days have vanished since yesterday. Sure enough, shortly after 7 in the morning, my grandmother started banging on my and my mother's door. Lazy woman, still not up to cook, trying to starve me to death. We kept our heads under the covers, ignoring her. Grandma, in her fiery temper, actually grabbed a sledgehammer and smashed the door open in no time, barging in and yanking off our blankets. Mom and I had only fallen asleep near dawn and were in deep, sweet slumber. Being rudely awakened, we were fuming with anger. My mother pushed my grandmother aside and scolded, "Make your own food if you want to eat, otherwise, go hungry." Grandmother, who had been used to bossing my mother around, couldn't stand being scolded even once. She sat in the yard, crying and wiping her nose, cursing with foul language. "That wasteful little slut gave birth to a money-losing girl and mistreats me. My life is so bitter, married a daughter-in-law who's not even human, can't even bear a son. Old man, I can't go on living, I'm coming to find you now." Neither my mom nor I paid her any attention and went about our own business washing up. Then my mom made me a delicious egg pancake. Holding the pancake, I squatted excitedly by the door, eating while calling the neighbors to come watch my grandma's solo tantrum performance. Furious and humiliated, my grandma rushed up to me and slapped the egg pancake out of my hand. "You worthless money loser, you jinx, got it, the stage is mine, time for me to take the lead, only magic can defeat magic." I gathered all my strength and knocked grandma over with a headbutt, then burst into loud sobs. "I get up before dawn every day to cook, just because I didn't get up today, you hit me. I'm only 6 years old. You keep calling me a money loser, but you're a woman too, so you're a money loser as well. My parents are both alive, how could I be a jinx? Both your parents are dead." Even my grandpa is dead. You're the real jinx here." Hearing such words from a mere 6-year-old child was utterly shocking. The crowd around burst into laughter, clicking their tongues in admiration, praising my quick wit and calling me extraordinary. My grandmother was left speechless by my retort. Seizing the opportunity, I added fuel to the fire, pretending to be worried as I said, "My dad hid Ophelia yesterday. And he's still locked up at the village chief's house." "Grandma, how can you still have the heart to eat?" The whole village was already eagerly waiting to see the wild ducks joke of my dad and Ophelia, and now they were even more excited, swarming and escorting my grandma to the village committee. I followed behind my mom, trotting along eagerly. In 1988, social customs were still undeveloped, and my dad and Ophelia really ran into trouble, according to the law. The two of them were to be sentenced for hooliganism, locked up overnight, cold, hungry, scared, and exhausted. They had no energy left to care about each other and quickly turned on one another, engaging in a dog-eat-dog battle. My dad argued that Ophelia seduced him, and that nothing really happened between them, just a kiss. Ophelia, on the other hand, vehemently accused my dad of being infatuated with her beauty and trying to force himself on her. She, a weak woman, was powerless to resist and was a complete victim. I sneered inwardly. Ophelia and my dad were childhood sweethearts. They were originally planning to get married, but before the wedding, my grandma found an old fortune teller who said Ophelia would bring bad luck to her husband. My grandma adamantly refused to allow the marriage. Later, my dad married my mom, a girl from another village, and Ophelia also married far away to another village. At the end of last year, Ophelia's husband died. Just as the fortune teller had predicted, still young and unwilling to remain a widow, she returned to her parents' home and rekindled her old flame with my father, like dry wood meeting a blazing fire. Their affair was not the first time. My dad contracted a construction site, working as a small subcontractor. My mom was busy washing clothes and cooking for the workers on the site, completely unaware of my dad's occasional affairs when he came home. My grandma was preoccupied with playing cards and didn't notice either. At this moment, if they had the courage to own up to their actions, I might actually admire them a bit. Now I feel that scumbags and shameless women are truly disgusting. "Susan, what do you think we should do about this?" The village chief took a deep drag of his cigarette and asked my mother. My mother's family was from another village. The village chief was her distant uncle and also served as the matchmaker between my father and mother. Now that such a thing has happened, even the village chief feels embarrassed. Seeing this, my grandmother, without waiting for my mother to speak, quickly tried to mediate. "Family scandals shouldn't be aired in public, Susan. It was that wretched girl who seduced the child's father. He's innocent, so please forgive him." "Exactly. For the sake of the child, just let it go." The village chief's wife also chimed in to persuade, mentioning that the village was currently participating in the town's model village selection, and at this critical moment, nothing scandalous should happen. With wide, innocent eyes, I said, "Yes, yes, think of the children." My mother looked at me in surprise, completely baffled by what I was up to. I smiled innocently. "Auntie Ophelia has a baby in her belly. It's a little brother." The whole village erupted in uproar. Grandma rushed over to cover my mouth, trying to stop me from speaking nonsense. "But I'm telling the truth. Ophelia was indeed pregnant, only 2 months along, and hadn't even realized it herself. It was this child who, in my previous life, plunged me into endless suffering." The boy Ophelia gave birth to was diagnosed with Down syndrome shortly after birth. The little money my father earned as a contractor was all spent on his medical treatment. But it was like trying to extinguish a fire with a cup of water. Ophelia looked at my cleverness and then at her dull and stupid son, and an evil thought arose in her heart. She contacted a human trafficker and secretly sold me when I was only 6 years old. My grandmother clearly noticed but did nothing to stop it. She needed money, a lot of money to cure her precious grandson. The doctor from the village clinic was invited over and immediately took Ophelia's pulse. It turned out that what I said was true. Ophelia was over 2 months pregnant. My mother snatched me from my grandmother's arms and held me tightly. She said in a trembling voice, "I won't forgive them. I want a divorce." All the money my parents earned from contracting projects over the years was handed over to my grandmother for safekeeping, but my mother was shrewd. She kept a small ledger, meticulously recording every penny. After 7 years of marriage, the couple's shared assets amounted to 12,000 yuan. The moment the ledger was revealed, the villagers were shocked. In those days, households with 10,000 yuan were still quite rare. Then, a woman whispered, "No wonder Ophelia took a liking to Rose's dad. He's really rich." Rose's mom is so foolish. With a husband who can earn so much, how could she even think of divorce? She should just make do." The villagers now looked at my dad, no longer with pure disdain, but even with some envy and jealousy. "Rose comes with me, and I'll take 10,000. My mother laid down the divorce terms with unwavering determination. Everyone was in an uproar, deeming it unreasonable, and my grandmother was especially adamant in her refusal. "Then I'll go to the town and report your son for bigamy. You can keep your money and die alone, old woman." My mother clenched her teeth, refusing to back down even an inch, seeing the situation at a stalemate. The village chief had no choice but to advise our family to calm down and give him an answer after the new year. When we got home, my mother threw all my father's clothes and belongings into the yard, officially separating from him. My father resented me for humiliating him in front of the whole village and hated my mother for insisting on divorcing him and making a scene. He grabbed a carrying pole and struck me hard with it, shouting that he would kill both me and my mother. But now, neither my mother nor I were the same pushovers who used to obey her every whim. Seeing me get hit, my mother's eyes turned red with rage. She grabbed an axe, turned around, and pinned my grandmother to the ground. My grandmother immediately let out a scream like a slaughtered pig. "You damned adulterous bitch, what do you think you're doing?" My mother kicked my grandmother hard. "Shut up, you old hag." Then she brandished the axe at my father. "If you dare touch Rose again, I'll take your life and your mother's." My father, stubborn as ever, gripped the carrying pole and lunged at my mother. Without hesitation, my mother swung the axe in her hand toward my grandmother. The sharp blade of the axe narrowly grazed my grandmother's cheek. Darkness filled my grandmother's vision as she collapsed, unconscious. As the saying goes, the reckless fear the desperate. My mother's near-frenzied state terrified my father and grandmother. After Grandma regained her composure, she gritted her teeth and said to my dad, "So be it, then. Ophelia is pregnant anyway, and it's probably a boy. Just let Susan take that worthless burden and get out of here." After saying that, she glared fiercely at my mother and sneered, "Susan, with that worthless burden and dead weight, no one will want you anymore. Be careful, or you'll have no son to take care of you in your old age." Hee hee. I was practically laughing in anger. I walked up to my grandmother and whispered softly in her ear, "Grandma, not all boys can carry on the family line. For example, idiots. They can't." Hearing my words, Grandma was stunned at first, then began to curse at me loudly. I ignored her and instead turned to help my mother pack her belongings. Let her have her moment of verbal satisfaction. Her days of crying are yet to come. My dad and mom got their divorce certificate, and my mom was given 10,000 yuan. My mom and I packed our luggage and left the house, unexpectedly. We ran into my grandma's family at the village entrance. My heart skipped a beat. In her past life, my mother suffered terribly because of this patriarchal family. After my parents divorced, my grandmother tricked my mother into returning home to fund my uncle's house construction. They married her off to a wealthy but disabled old man and even helped him imprison her. They made my mother endure 10 years of living hell. Sure enough, Uncle's eyes were darting around as he said to my mom in a sarcastic tone, "Susan, I heard you got a lot of money from the divorce. What does a woman like you need so much money for? Hurry up and hand it all over to me." My mom clutched her wallet tightly and coldly replied to Uncle, "Dream on." Grandma, seeing my mom wouldn't listen, directly reached out to snatch the bag. A crowd had gathered at the village entrance to watch the commotion. After all, Grandma was the elder, so most people still sided with them. Seeing the money in my hand was about to be taken, I quickly grabbed Grandma's arm and said with a smile, "This money was meant for my mom to start a business. Once we make a profit, we'll give it all to you, okay?" Grandma scoffed at my mom and said, "If anyone should start a business, it should be your brother. You're just a woman. Hurry back to the village with me and find a wealthy man to marry while you're still young." Sure enough, in this life, they still intend to sell Mom. Seeing Mom's face turn deathly pale, my heart ached, but I still said to Grandma, "Starting a business is very hard, and Uncle has always been in poor health. He can't endure such hardship. My mom has connections in the city and can secure construction projects, making over 100,000 a year without any trouble. When the time comes, I'll bring all of you to the city to enjoy a good life, okay?" I squeezed my mom's hand, signaling her to calm down. My mom took a deep breath and said through gritted teeth to Grandma, "Don't worry, once I have money, I'll bring all of you to the city and take care of you properly." After our repeated reassurances, we finally managed to leave Grandma's family behind. Back in the city, we rented a small house. My mother had always been known for her diligence and warmth when working in the city, so, as soon as she returned this time, people actively sought her out for projects. My mom formed a construction crew. She specialized in snatching my dad's business, and she succeeded every time. My dad was so angry he gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. A year later, the construction crew expanded and grew into a real estate company, but things were tough for my dad. Rumor had it he was barely keeping his business afloat. That day after school, my dad was waiting at the school gate. When he saw me come out, he came over with a grin and tried to pull me along. "Rose, Dad bought you a lot of things. Hurry up and come home with Dad." I gave him a cold smile and glanced at him. "What, not calling me a money waster anymore?" My dad awkwardly replied. "Rose, your grandma is old, and sometimes what she says isn't pleasant to hear. Lately, we've been thinking about you and your mom a lot. We're still family after all. Help your dad persuade your mom to remarry me." It's strange, but after my dad and mom divorced, he didn't immediately marry Ophelia like in my previous life. Perhaps the scene of catching them in the act that I orchestrated created a rift between them. Although Ophelia and her family have been making a fuss, and she even gave birth to a son, my dad just kept refusing to marry her. I never expected that my dad actually harbored the idea of remarrying my mom. I have no idea where he got the nerve. My dad kept pulling me aside, rambling on and brainwashing me. "Rose, it's best to have your original parents. Your mom is making money now, so there must be a lot of people eyeing her. If she marries someone else in the future and has another son, there won't be any place for you in the family. You still have to rely on me, rely on your sister." Before I could speak, a man's voice angrily scolded my dad. My little uncle, the village bully who was undefeated in the whole village, showed up. He kicked my dad around like a soccer ball, sending him scurrying away with his tail between his legs. "Rose, don't listen to that scumbag. Your dad, mother's brother, is the greatest. You and your mom will still need me to back you up in the future. Little uncle has a small favor to ask your mom. Can you put in a good word for me, in my mom's office?" Little uncle explained his small favor. He has a girlfriend and wants to get married. The other side is asking for a 30,000 yuan bride price. My mother agreed without hesitation, saying she would gather the money and give it to him in a few days. My little uncle left in high spirits. Over the past year or so, my mother has been giving quite a bit of financial support to her family. She frequently bought nice things and took them back to the village. The latest model of mobile phone, the most fashionable leather jacket, and a cool motorcycle, but there's only one of each item. The villagers praised my mother endlessly and envied my grandmother for her good fortune, but my mother knew that life at grandma's house wasn't going smoothly, because grandma was biased. All the good things she gave to the eldest uncle, while the youngest uncle got nothing, and had long been full of complaints, harboring resentment. 2 months ago, my mom bought grandma a large 3-bedroom apartment, registered under grandma's name. Grandma has been busy these days trying to transfer the house to my eldest uncle. At this point, just adding fuel to the fire could escalate the conflict to its peak. Sure enough, 3 days later, my youngest uncle came rushing to my mom in a panic. "Sis, how's the money coming along? If you don't give it to me soon, my relationship is going to fall through." My mother exclaimed in surprise. "Didn't our mom give you the money? I gave her 100,000 yuan a long time ago. She said she'd give you 30,000 and use the remaining 70,000 to buy our brother a car." At this point, my mother paused, choked up for a moment, and said thoughtfully, "I've seen our brother's car, and it seems to be worth exactly 100,000. Could it be?" My uncle's face turned ashen, and without another word, he rushed out. In the evening, the police called my mother. I was shocked when my mom and I arrived at grandma's house. The floor was covered in blood. Grandma was slumped on the sofa, already unconscious. It turned out that after my youngest uncle came back in the afternoon, he had gone completely mad. He accused his grandmother of favoritism, saying all the good things were only given to his eldest uncle. Not only did he get no share of the house, but even the betrothal money meant for his wedding was used to buy a car for his eldest uncle. It is not the lack but the inequality that causes discontent. One incident after another finally overwhelmed his youngest uncle's reason. He hacked his elder uncle more than 10 times with a kitchen knife, according to the police. In the end, only a thin layer of skin was left connecting my eldest uncle's neck to his head. A life for a life. My youngest uncle was sentenced to death, and my grandmother, traumatized by the shock, suffered a stroke and became paralyzed. Throughout the whole ordeal, my mother remained eerily calm. After handling all the affairs, she hired a woman from the village who had always been on bad terms with grandma as the nanny. "Take good care of the old lady, make sure she doesn't die." My mother left these cold words behind and walked away without looking back. This nanny would surely take good care of Grandma. In my past life, Grandma helped that old man imprison my mother. My mother begged her, but she just said, "You have food and drink, what more could you want?" In this life, the house where her two sons killed each other became her prison, with food and drink, and a nanny who abused her day after day. She should be quite content, shouldn't she? What a perfect ending this is. When something happened at my grandmother's house, my dad got even more excited. He thought that without my mother's family, we mother and daughter would have to rely on him, so he kept harassing me all day, jumping around like a monkey. That day, my mom took me to a banquet hosted by the city's real estate companies. I was wearing a pretty little dress, eating my small cake sweetly and adorably, but I was almost knocked over by a woman. She rushed into the crowd in a hurry, grabbed a man, and said in panic, "Honey, our eldest child is seriously ill. It's very dangerous. The doctor has issued a critical condition notice." I took a closer look. What a coincidence. Familiar faces. Isn't that my dad and Ophelia? My dad's face darkened as he scolded in a low voice, "What kind of occasion is this for you to make a scene? Get out of here." After speaking, he dragged Ophelia out like a dead dog. Ophelia clung tightly to the table leg, accusing through snot and tears, "You heartless man, seeing our son is sick, you just want to abandon your wife and child. Good bosses, judge for yourselves. Give justice to us mother and child." It turned out that Ophelia's son, Tom, had not been quite normal since birth. Ophelia took him to various doctors, spending all the money my father had given her. A few days ago, a major hospital officially diagnosed Tom with Down syndrome, accompanied by complications such as epilepsy and heart disease. At first, my father and grandmother held on to hope, but later, learning that the illness was incurable, they began to consider abandoning Tom and had not cared for Ophelia and her son for many days. Today, Tom had an epileptic seizure, and the hospital issued a critical illness notice. It was then that Ophelia, disregarding everything, came to the banquet to cause a scene, but I knew my father wouldn't care about Tom anymore. He'd only feel relieved. When it comes to useless people or things, he's always been ruthless and merciless. Today's banquet was crucial for my father. Originally, thanks to his smooth talking, several bosses had considered collaborating with him. But now all those plans were ruined. My dad, furious, gave Ophelia a good slapping. A boss who had a feud with my father couldn't stand it anymore and sarcastically remarked, "Boss, after doing such a heartless and despicable thing that cuts off your descendants, aren't you afraid that no one will bury you when you die?" My father looked up and saw me at the front of the crowd, eagerly watching the commotion. He excitedly grabbed me and proudly announced to everyone, "Who says I'm without descendants? This is my daughter. She always ranks first in every exam and just participated in the National Children's Essay Competition." The boss glanced at me skeptically and asked, "Is your daughter really that amazing?" I replied with an innocent smile, "Yes, I'm amazing. At 6 years old, I could lead the whole village to catch my dad cheating." The banquet ended with my dad's utter embarrassment and Ophelia's ear-splitting cries. My father's face darkened as he asked me through gritted teeth, "Do you still consider me your father?" I shook my head with a cold laugh. "A year ago, when I caught you in the act, I already lost my father. 3 days later, on my way home from school, I was kidnapped. I was knocked unconscious by a drugged towel and loaded into a van. My head ached terribly, and in the endless darkness, I had a distant dream. In my previous life, after Ophelia's son was diagnosed, Grandma sighed all day long. That day, Ophelia brought back a very kind and generous woman, Lucy. She brought me lots of candies and snacks, even a new set of clothes. I smiled as I accepted the gifts and thanked her sweetly. Lucy stroked my little face and praised me with satisfaction, saying, "She's a smart and pretty child. Only smart and pretty girls can fetch a good price." Lucy, a nationally notorious human trafficker, specializes in abducting children. Grandma actually noticed, but with a complicated expression. She glanced at Tom, gritted her teeth, and retreated into her room without further inquiry. Lucy gave Ophelia 3,000 yuan, who then sold me to a couple in S-City for 6,000 yuan. The couple needed a child bride to take care of their paralyzed son. In that household, I lived a life worse than death. I dropped out of middle school and went to work at the Red Butterfly Garment Factory, working 18 hours a day until I died from overwork on the assembly line. After my death, my mother, who had finally escaped from the countryside, learned of my passing. Heartbroken and hopeless, she drowned herself in the river. Yet my scumbag father and the family who bought me as a child bride profited from the tragedy, extorting a large sum of compensation from the Red Butterfly garment factory where I worked. Hell is empty, and the demons are all here, in this life. I ultimately couldn't escape the fate of being trafficked by my own family. When I woke up again, I was tied up in an abandoned factory. Beside me was a little girl, delicate and pretty, about 5 or 6 years old. She was terrified, trembling all over. "Don't be afraid," I whispered to comfort her. "Someone will come to save us." At that moment, the door opened, and several people walked in. No surprise, it was Lucy. Behind me followed 2 people I would never forget even if I turned to ashes, Bob and his wife. "The couple who bought me in my previous life," Lucy pointed at me and said. "This one is clever and pretty, quite suitable to serve your son." But Daisy wasn't very satisfied. She remarked critically, "You're too old to be manageable." After saying that, she pointed at the little girl beside me and added, "Let's take this one instead. She's young, a few beatings will make her obedient." In my previous life, after being taken to Bob's house, I was first locked in a dark room and starved for 3 days, dying and then forced to eat dog food in a dog cage. In the days that followed, when Bob Daisy was happy, I got scolded. When they were unhappy, I got beaten. Their disabled son was even more of a pervert, who loved to poke me with toothpicks and burn me with cigarette butts. After being tormented for half a year, I completely surrendered, lost the ability to resist, and obediently became their family's beast of burden. I glared at Bob Daisy with bloodshot eyes. Yet I was helpless, watching as they dragged the little girl away. Lucy and her accomplices got $8,000 and bought a pile of delicious food. His accomplice leered at me and asked Lucy with a smirk, "What should we do with this little girl?" Lucy said coldly, "Sell her abroad, get her on the boat tonight. A new club just opened there, specifically looking for young girls." I'm so excited, never thought Lucy would make it big, expanding her business so widely, even reaching overseas. Now she won't be able to get away with it even if she dies 8 times over. The police arrived before Lucy and the others could finish their delicious food. The armed police, fully equipped, easily took down these troublemakers. One robber tried to take me hostage but was shot in the head, brains splattered everywhere. Lucy was so terrified she wet herself. How disgusting. A female police officer disguised herself as Lucy and went undercover on the human trafficker's ship. A cross-border human trafficking case was cracked. Girls from multiple countries were rescued. A police officer happily said to me, "Little hero, thanks to the locator on your watch, we were able to arrive so quickly." After being reborn, I was always worried that the kidnapping from my previous life would happen again, so I asked my mom to buy me a watch with a tracking function from abroad, but I had no mind to accept their praise. I anxiously said, "Hurry, go to S City. There are more kidnapped children there." With my guidance, the police quickly found Bob's family, but there was no trace of the little girl at home. No, there must be something I missed. I tried hard to recall what had happened in this place in my previous life. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead, yet no clue came to mind. Just as the police were about to call off the search in frustration, I noticed Bob's disabled son gripping his wheelchair nervously. The carpet beneath the wheelchair bore distinct marks from being twisted. A sudden realization flashed through my mind. In my previous life, whenever I disobeyed, this paralyzed demon would coldly threaten me, "If you don't obey, I'll beat you to death and stuff you in the cellar." I pointed at the wheelchair and shouted, "That carpet is suspicious. There's a cellar underneath it." The police found the abducted little girl in the cellar. She was covered in wounds and on the verge of death. What was even more shocking was that 2 skeletal remains were also discovered in the cellar. Without exception, they were all young girls. When the police removed the bones from the cellar, that deranged cripple was still screaming wildly. They were just toys my parents bought for me, so what if I killed them? This family was unspeakably cruel. The filthiest trade in this world is human trafficking. In places where sunlight cannot reach, twisted desires and needs fester. Buying and selling are equally guilty. No trade, no harm. The Bob family will ultimately pay with their lives. The police arrested my father. He confessed to the process of selling me. He realized the fact that I would never acknowledge him again. By selling me, he could get a large sum of money. Secondly, it would deal a heavy blow to my mother, leaving her devastated, and thus allow me to reclaim the business she had taken from me. The most outrageous part is that he believes himself to be my biological father, thinking that even if he sold me, he wouldn't face legal consequences. Ridiculous. My grandmother blocked the entrance to my home, kneeling and begging my mother and me not to hold my father legally accountable. I smiled and said to her, Grandma, what do you have to worry about? You have a son and a grandson. So you're not short of people to take care of you in your old age and see you off, even though one is a criminal and the other is an idiot. At least they're both males. You're truly blessed with great fortune. To kill a person is to destroy their spirit. Grandma stopped pleading with us and instead stood blocking the doorway, cursing. We ignored her, watching her cry herself hoarse and writhe in agony as if it were a monkey show. But she only lasted 3 days before she stopped coming. I thought she had given up, but I never expected that something had happened to her. After my dad was arrested, Ophelia came to my grandma's house to ask for money to treat Tom. During their struggle, my grandma fell down the stairs and died on the spot. Ophelia and Tom were left with nowhere to go. In the end, their bodies were found in the moat, mother and child. Now, all the enemies from my mother's and my previous lives have met their deserved fate. The two of us sat on the rooftop, gazing at the starry sky, overwhelmed with emotions. Through 2 lifetimes, those who hurt us the most were actually our closest kin. Why? Is it simply because we are girls? No matter how outstanding we are, in their eyes, we will be reduced to mere appendages and tools of men. What's even more tragic is that among those who harm us, there are many women, whether it was my grandma and maternal grandma, who favored boys over girls, or Ophelia, who stole someone's husband, or Lucy, who trafficked people. Worldly customs, desires, and money have blinded their eyes and extinguished their conscience. How fortunate my mother and I are to have the chance to be reborn in this life. Yet in this world, there are still so many girls who cannot escape the harm inflicted by their birth families. Rose, I want to establish a foundation. Under the starry sky, my mother's eyes sparkled brightly. Help those girls who have been insulted, abandoned, and persecuted. I tightly held my mother's hand. Let's work together. The Rose Foundation was established. Pay high attention to the phenomena of trafficking women and forced marriages in impoverished mountainous areas. Rescue those girls who are in dire straits. Hope primary schools have also been established to support girls from families that favor sons over daughters. Provide them with education and purchase sanitary products for them. Establish vocational high schools to equip them with professional skills. Set up factories to provide job opportunities, enabling them to be self-reliant, free from exploitation and oppression. They will always have the courage and confidence to face life with a smile. The events of our past lives have long faded from memory for both my mother and me, and we've gradually let go. In this life, we finally became the vibrant, hope-bringing Rose we were meant to be. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.